President Biden is headed to New York City today to take part in the UN General Assembly. The largest gathering of world leaders will also prove to be a major test for the president as he looks to settle several diplomatic crises and set a clear direction for the United States on the international stage. Joining us now for more is CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Hi, Ed. So the White House, as you know, has had to deal with several international incidents recently. Let's start with France. President Biden will meet with President Macron. Can he repair the damage done to that relationship by the Australia submarine deal?
Well, actually, they're not scheduled to meet. What they are scheduled to do, at least the White House hopes, is hold a call to discuss what went wrong last week in the view of the French and how the U.S. is trying to patch up things. Macron is not expected to be in New York for the UN General Assembly, so whatever they do, again, will have to be virtual or over the phone. Big understanding here at the White House now how seriously upset the French are about the decision by Australia to pull out of a several billion-dollar nuclear submarine deal in favor of one now with the Brits and the Americans instead. They withdrew and recalled their ambassador to Washington, their ambassador to Australia as well for consultations. That hasn't happened since the Iraq War, the comments from French government officials about the idea that this president is very similar to the former president in how he's treating France, that's not being well received, certainly here in Washington, and there's an understanding that there's some patching up of the relationship to do.
And Ed, many viewed the Afghanistan withdrawal as mishandled. How will this event play a factor in the president's sideline meetings with world leaders?
Well, it's expected to come up to some extent, certainly perhaps in the commentary by other world leaders, and then in his remarks in sort of acknowledgement that the U.S. is moving on from it. But the president is going to New York at a pretty rough time in terms of his presidency with several challenges on the domestic and international fronts. Obviously, the situation in Afghanistan, perhaps most prominent, most urgent for many of those that are either coming in person or will be addressing it virtually. The idea that the United States did what it did, pulled out the way it did, has caused a whole new set of geopolitical circumstances to be debated by countries there in Central Asia and across the Middle East, and of course European partners who felt a little blindsided and unaware of the total plan for U.S. withdrawal and how quickly it happened. So we'll see how much patching up he has to do. But it's telling, if you look at who he's meeting with this week, how the president wants to pivot. He's holding a few in-person and virtual conversations, many of them actually back here in Washington after the world leader has gone to the UN, with the heads of Australia, the United Kingdom, Japan, and India. All of those are ones involved in that sort of pivot or new, fresh concern from the Biden administration about competition with China. And so by doing those kinds of meetings this week, when the eyes of the world are on the UN and world leaders are out and about meeting with each other, telling that those are the leaders he wants to meet with.
And Ed, speaking of China, in a press briefing today, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki spoke about the U.S.'s approach toward China. Let's listen to what she said.
The president's view and this administration's view is that our relationship with China is one not of conflict, but of competition. Tomorrow, the president will deliver a speech, as you all know, at the UN General Assembly, and he will make absolutely clear that he is not looking to pursue a new Cold War with any country in the world. We will continue to pursue our interests. We will continue to lift up global priorities, but that is not the objective or the policy of the United States.
So, Ed, what do you make of the press secretary's characterization of the U.S.-China relationship?
Yeah, competition, not conflict, is a very neat way of summarizing what it is the United States believes is the way to address China now. And I think telling that they are sort of going out of their way to clarify that, in part because over the weekend, the United Nations Secretary General made clear that he's got concerns about how these two countries are interacting with each other and that they've got to come to some better agreement to avoid the potential for some kind of Cold War or sort of, non-aggressive but global conflict that would pit these two countries and their allies against each other. So, again, all of this is sort of the way the Biden administration is starting to approach its foreign policy. It's China and then everything else following behind it. What has to be done to counter their influence on an economic, military, social scale around the world, and recalibrating it by ending the situation in Afghanistan and moving on. Again, all part of this push by the Biden administration. As unpopular as it may be right now domestically, as concerning as it may be to other parts of the world, this is the way the White House is headed.
Right, and to your point of defining U.S. foreign policy, this speech to the UN is generally just that sort of defining moment for U.S. foreign policy. Former President Trump, of course, used the platform to threaten North Korea in 2017 and was also openly laughed at by world leaders when he touted his achievements in 2018. What kind of speech can we expect from President Biden?
One that's trying to pivot the United States from beyond the Afghanistan conflict of the last 20 years and say, we've got a handle on counterterrorism with the rest of the world. Now we've got to work on this urgent threat of the pandemic. And the United States, at least, is going to be working to sustain democracies around the world in their ongoing feud with autocracies, believing, as he has said on the campaign trail, as he said in his State of the Union, as he has said in other addresses from here at the White House, that fight, democracy versus autocracy, is the defining one of this period in the 21st century, and it's one he anticipates democracy will prevail. So we'll hear a lot of that tomorrow. Don't be surprised if it doesn't get too specific. And as Jen Psaki said, expect a nod to the ongoing competition with China, not necessarily the conflict that some fear could come.
Competition, not conflict. All right, Ed O'Keefe at the White House, thank you so much.
Take care.